My brother texted, "You lack the status for the Legacy Gala." I said, "Agreed, my gala is private." Days later, I bought a yacht named after their insult. They arrived with a locksmith to seize it, but when the cabin door opened, the owner inside froze them cold. The blue light from 3 different monitors was the only thing illuminating my face. It was 7 in the evening on a Tuesday, and my apartment in Boston was dead silent, save for the hum of my hard drives and the rhythmic clicking of my mouse. To anyone looking in, I probably looked like a gamer pulling an all-nighter or a student drowning in finals. But the spreadsheets in front of me told a different story. I was looking at the digital trail of a shell company based in the Cayman Islands that had been siphoning funds from a pharmaceutical giant for 5 years. I am a forensic accountant. Or, as I like to tell people at parties when I actually want them to talk to me, I am a professional treasure hunter. I find things that people desperate to hide. Assets, embezzled funds, hidden inheritances. I'm good at it. Scary good. But my family? They think I do data entry for a temp agency. My phone vibrated against the mahogany desk, buzzing like an angry hornet. I glanced at it. A notification from the Vane Family Updates group chat. A chat I had been muted in for 3 years, but never removed from, mostly because I needed the receipts for therapy. I picked up the phone. The message was from Tristan, my younger brother, the golden boy, the heir apparent to the Vane real estate empire, despite never having closed a deal in his 29 years of life. The text read, "Heads up, Mal Dad reviewed the guest list for the Vane Legacy Gala at the country club this year. You didn't make the cut. The new partners are coming, and Dad says you are not elite enough for the image we are projecting. Stay home. Save us the embarrassment." I stared at the screen. I didn't blink. I didn't cry. There was a time, maybe 10 years ago, when a message like that would have sent me spiraling into a bottle of cheap wine and a weekend of self-loathing. But today it just felt like reading a weather report, cloudy with a chance of narcissism. I unlocked my phone and typed a reply, but before I could hit send, another notification popped up on my center monitor. It was a secure alert from my bank. Wire transfer received. $875,000. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The commission for the pharmaceutical case. Nearly $900,000, liquid, tax paid, and sitting in my account. Added to my previous savings, my net worth had just crossed a very significant threshold. I looked back at Tristan's text. Not elite enough. The irony was so thick I could practically chew on it. My father, Richard Vane, was currently leveraging his properties to the hilt to keep up appearances. My mother, Constance, was wearing vintage Chanel not because it was trendy, but because she hadn't bought a new season piece in 4 years. They were drowning in debt to look rich. I was drowning in cash while looking invisible. I deleted my draft. I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to beg. I typed a new message. Understood. Enjoy the gala. My party is somewhere else. I hit send. Then I placed the phone face down. I looked at the bank balance again. $875,000. It was time. For years, I had been saving, planning, and waiting for a sign. Being uninvited from the family Christmas party, that wasn't just a sign. That was a green light. I opened a new tab on my browser. I didn't go to a real estate site. I didn't go to a luxury car dealer. I went to a maritime brokerage listing I had been refreshing for 2 months. 1998 Burger Yacht. 60 feet. Aluminum hull. Estate sale. Cash buyers only. She was old. She was tired. But she had good bones. Just like me. I picked up my phone again and dialed a number I had on speed dial. It rang twice. Silas speaking. A deep, calm voice answered. "It's Mallory," I said. "Initiate the protocol, Silas. I want to buy a ghost. And I want it ready by New Year's Eve." "You finally got the check?" Silas asked, his voice losing its professional edge. "I got the check," I said, looking at the glowing numbers. "And I got uninvited from the gala." Again, Silas chuckled, a low, dry sound. "Their loss is about to be very expensive. Meet me at the Oak Room in an hour. We have an LLC to form." To understand why I didn't scream when my brother told me I wasn't elite enough, you have to understand the Vane family hierarchy. It is a structure as rigid as a skyscraper, and I was never meant to be in the penthouse. I was the foundation, buried underground, holding things up, and walked all over. They called me the spare. It started as a joke when I was 12 and Tristan was 9. We were at a dinner party, and my father, Richard, was holding court with his business partners. He had his hand on Tristan's shoulder, beaming like he had just invented the sun. "This is Tristan," he announced, "the heir to the throne." One of the partners, a man with a cigar and a cruel laugh, pointed at me sitting in the corner reading a book. "And who is that?" "The backup plan." My father didn't defend me. He didn't say, "That's my brilliant daughter Mallory." He laughed. He clinked his glass and said, "Exactly. That's the spare tire. You only use it when the main one blows out, and you hope you never have to." The room laughed. My mother laughed. Tristan, soaking up the attention, laughed the loudest. From that day on, I wasn't Mallory. I was the spare. Or, as Tristan got older and meaner, B-List B. A nickname that morphed into just B-List. The difference in our treatment wasn't subtle, it was architectural. When I turned 18, I came downstairs expecting something. A family dinner, maybe. A car? No, I wasn't that delusional. But acknowledgement. Instead, I found a card on the kitchen counter signed by my father's secretary. Inside was a $50 gift card to a bookstore. My parents were in Europe for a networking trip. Tristan was at a lacrosse camp. I spent my 18th birthday eating takeout sushi alone in a 5-bedroom house, watching reruns of old sitcoms. 2 years later, Tristan turned 16. The driveway was filled with caterers. A band was playing in the backyard. My father stood on a stage and handed Tristan the keys to a brand new Range Rover. Not a used one. Brand new. Custom leather. "To the future of this family," my father had toasted. Tristan revved the engine while his friends cheered. I was inside, washing the champagne glasses because the catering staff was short-handed, and my mother told me I needed to make myself useful since I wasn't very decorative. That was the core philosophy of Richard and Constance Vane. Image is currency. Tristan looked the part. He was tall, athletic, with that perfect jawline and easy, unearned confidence that rich people love. He failed algebra twice, crashed 3 cars, and got kicked out of 2 boarding schools, but he looked good in a suit. He was an asset. I was plain. I was quiet. I liked math. I liked solving puzzles. I wore glasses and preferred oversized sweaters to cocktail dresses. In their ledger, I was a liability. I didn't add value to the Vane brand. So, I did what any good accountant does when they realize an asset is depreciating. I diversified. I stopped trying to be a Vane. I went to a state college instead of the Ivy League status symbols they wanted and refused to pay for. I took loans. I worked 3 jobs. I discovered I had a knack for following money trails. I realized that the same attention to detail that made me boring to my family made me terrifyingly effective at finding fraud. By 25, I was working for one of the top forensic firms in Boston. By 28, I went freelance. By 30, I was a ghost. My family had no idea. To them, I was barely scraping by. I rented a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood. I drove a 6-year-old sedan. I wore clothes from Target when I visited them. I never told them about my commissions. I never told them about the time I helped the FBI dismantle a Ponzi scheme. Why? Because if Richard Vane knew I had money, he would feel entitled to it. Family assets, he would say. He would demand I invest in his failing strip malls or cover Tristan's gambling debts. Staying the B-list spare was my camouflage. It was my safety. But safety can get lonely. And safety can get boring. Sitting there in my dark office, remembering the $50 gift card and the Range Rover, I realized something. I was 32 years old. I had nearly $2 million in net worth across various accounts. And I was still letting a failed high school quarterback and 2 aging socialites dictate my self-worth. The spare, I whispered to the empty room. I looked at the picture of the yacht on my screen. It was sturdy. It was built to survive storms. It had been neglected, just like me. I wasn't going to just buy a boat. I was going to build a floating fortress. A kingdom where the spare was the queen, and the Vanes would need a visa to enter. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that they would never get one. My thumb hovered over the send button. My party is somewhere else. It was a simple sentence, but in the language of my family, it was a declaration of war. Or at least, a declaration of independence. I pressed send. The reaction was immediate. Tristan replied within 30 seconds. A laughing emoji. Then a text. Your party? Where? Dunkin' Donuts? Don't forget your coupon, Mal. My mother, Constance, liked the message. That little thumbs up icon hurt more than the text itself. It was the digital equivalent of her standing by while Tristan shoved me into the mud, sipping her tea and looking the other way. Then came a text from my father, Richard. Just make sure you don't post anything embarrassing on social media tonight. We have investors looking at our profiles. Keep a low profile. As usual. As usual. I put the phone down. I didn't block them. Not yet. Silas, my lawyer, had taught me that. Never block the opposition, Mallory. You mute them. You archive them. But you keep the line open. You never know when they'll hand you the evidence you need to bury them. So I muted the notifications. I turned my phone face down and grabbed my coat. I walked out of my apartment building into the biting November wind of Boston. I needed the cold. I needed to feel sharp. I hailed a cab and gave the driver the address of the Oak Room, a steakhouse downtown that smelled of old money and leather. Silas was already there, sitting in a booth in the back. Silas was the only person from my past who knew the truth. We had met in college, two scholarship kids in a sea of trust funds. He had gone into maritime law, becoming a shark in a suit, while I went into the financial shadows. He was the brother I should have had. He had a file folder on the table and a scotch in his hand. He didn't smile when I sat down, but his eyes were warm. You look like you're ready to kill someone, he said calmly. Not kill, I corrected, unwinding my scarf. Evict. I want to evict them from my head, Silas. And the best way to do that is to buy a 60-foot yacht? He raised an eyebrow. Most people just go to therapy. I tried therapy. My therapist told me to set boundaries. This boat is going to be a 60-ton floating boundary. I ordered a sparkling water. Talk to me about the setup. Silas opened the folder. Okay. We form a Delaware LLC. I'm thinking we call it Ironclad Holdings. It sounds boring, corporate, and impenetrable. I will be the registered agent. Your name appears nowhere on the public records. As far as the world is concerned, this boat is owned by a faceless entity. Perfect, I said. The vessel you want, Silas tapped a paper. The 1998 Burger. It's in probate in Newport. The owner died without a clear will, and his kids are fighting over the cash. They don't care about the boat. They just want it liquidated. The broker says if you come in with a cash offer tomorrow morning, they'll bypass the auction. What's the number? I asked. Asking $650. I think we can get it for $575 cash, considering it needs an interior refit. $575,000. It was a staggering amount of money. It was more than my parents' house was actually equity positive for. But I had the money. I had earned every cent of it tracking down thieves and liars. Do it, I said. Offer $550. Tell them we can close in 48 hours. Silas nodded, making a note. You realize this is going to be a project, Mal? You have 8 weeks until New Year's. A refit usually takes months. I don't need it pretty, I said, leaning forward. I need it functional. And I need it secure. I'm going to spend 50 grand just on security, Silas. Cameras, sensors, maglocks. Silas paused. He looked at me, really looked at me. You think they'll try to come for it? I know them, I said softly. Tristan is failing. Dad is leveraged. If they catch a whiff of money, if they smell success, they won't just ask for it. They'll try to absorb it. They think I belong to them. Therefore, anything I have belongs to them. Silas closed the folder. Then we make it a fortress. Ironclad Holdings. Let's get you a boat. We clinked glasses. For the first time all day, the knot in my chest loosened. I wasn't the spare anymore. I was the CEO of Ironclad Holdings, and I was going to war. The next morning, the wire transfer left my account. $550,000. Seeing that number disappear from my balance was terrifying, but it was also exhilarating. It was the first time in my life I had spent money on something purely for myself. Not for survival, not for education, but for existence. Silas handled the paperwork with the efficiency of a surgeon. By noon, Ironclad Holdings LLC was a registered entity in Delaware. By 2 p.m., the offer was accepted. The heirs of the previous owner were so desperate for quick cash to pay off their own debts that they didn't even counteroffer. I was now the owner of a 60-foot superyacht. Well, technically, I was the owner of a 60-foot headache that was currently sitting in a dry dock in Newport, Rhode Island. 2 days later, I drove down to Newport. I didn't take a luxury car. I took my beat-up Honda Civic. I parked in the shipyard's visitor lot, pulling my coat tight against the gray November chill. The air smelled of salt, diesel fumes, and money. Newport is a strange place. It's where the Gilded Age never really ended. It just got better security systems. Massive sailing yachts with masts that scraped the clouds sat next to sleek, modern motor yachts that looked like spaceships. And there, in the back corner of the yard, was my boat. She was hauled out of the water, sitting on massive blocks. Her white paint was dull and chalky. There were streaks of rust weeping from the anchor pockets. She looked abandoned. She looked sad. But she was huge. The aluminum hull rose up like a wall. The lines were classic, elegant, not aggressive like the modern boats. She looked like a proper ship, not a floating sneaker. I walked up to the temporary office trailer at the base of the lift. A man was stepping out, wiping grease off his hands with a rag. He was in his 60s, with a face that looked like it had been carved out of driftwood and a beard that was more salt than pepper. He wore a heavy wool cap and coveralls stained with oil. "Help you, miss?" he asked, his voice gravelly. He didn't look at me with malice, just with the weary patience of a man who deals with lost tourists. "I'm looking for the yard manager," I said. "I'm here for the burger. The 60-footer. He stopped wiping his hands. He looked me up and down. "You the assistant? Tell the new owner he bought a solid boat, but she's got a list of issues a mile long." I smiled. It was a genuine smile. "I'm not the assistant. I'm the owner, Mallory Vane, and I know about the issues. I read the survey." The man raised his eyebrows. You? You bought this beast?" "Cash," I said, "and I intend to put her back in the water by Christmas." "Are you Bill?" "Captain Bill," he corrected, but there was a twinkle in his eye. "Or Barnacle Bill, if you ask the guys in the shop." "Nice to meet you, Captain." I extended my hand. He hesitated, looking at his grease-stained palm, then wiped it one more time and shook my hand. His grip was like a vice. "Well, Miss Vane, you got grit, buying a boat like this in winter. Most folks buy 'em in June and sell 'em by August when the fuel bill hits." "I'm not most folks," I said. "Can we go aboard? I want to see the engine room first." That stopped him. "The engine room? Most owners want to see the master stateroom. Check the thread count on the sheets." "The sheets don't keep you afloat in a storm, Captain. The engines do. Show me the Detroit diesels." Bill grinned. It transformed his face. "Right this way, Captain Vane. Right this way." Climbing the ladder to the deck of the boat felt like climbing a mountain. The wind whipped my hair across my face, stinging my cheeks, but I didn't care. I stepped onto the aft deck. The teak wood under my boots was gray and weathered, stripped of its golden oil by years of neglect. But it was solid. I stomped on it. No rot. Just neglect. "Teak needs sanding and oiling," Bill said, following me up. "About a week's work for a crew of 3. "Book them," I said. "I want it silver gray, not orange." "Natural." We moved into the salon. The interior smelled stale, like old cigars and damp wool. The carpet was a hideous shade of forest green from the 90s. The furniture was heavy, dark wood that made the space feel like a coffin. "Gut it," I said, looking around. "Rip up the carpet. I want hardwood floors. Teak and holly. Replace the furniture with something lighter. Gray, cream, modern, but not cold." Bill was taking notes on a small, battered notepad. "That's a lot of carpentry, Miss Vane. You sure you have the budget?" "I have the budget," I assured him. "But let's get to the heart." He led me down a narrow stairway, through a heavy steel door, and into the engine room. It was loud, even with the engines off. The ventilation fans hummed. The space was dominated by 2 massive engines, painted white, size of small cars. Detroit diesels, 12V71S. The workhorses of the ocean. I walked between them. I ran my hand along the valve covers. I checked the bilges, the bottom of the boat where water collects. They were surprisingly clean. "She was maintained mechanically," Bill said, his voice echoing in the metal room. "Previous owner was a cheapskate on the decor, but he didn't skimp on oil changes." I pointed to a pump in the corner. "That stabilizer pump looks like it's leaking hydraulic fluid. See the sheen on the hose?" Bill leaned in, squinting. He touched the hose. "Well, I'll be damned. You got eagle eyes, Mississippi." "Yeah, seal's busted." "Replace it," I said, "and upgrade the generator. If I'm going to run the electronics I'm planning, I need stable power. Pure sine wave inverter, heavy-duty battery bank." Bill looked at me with a new level of respect. "You know your systems." "I read," I said, "and I don't like surprises." We spent 2 hours crawling through every inch of that boat. I checked the wiring behind the helm station. I checked the water tanks. I checked the anchor chain. By the time we emerged back onto the deck, the sun was setting, turning the gray Newport sky into a bruised purple. My hands were dirty. My boots were scuffed. I was freezing, and I had never felt happier. So, Bill said, putting his cap back on, "What do we call her?" "The stern plate is blank." The old name was Lady Luck. I looked at the boat. I looked at the solid aluminum rails, the unpretentious lines, the sheer strength of the thing hiding under the dirt. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't trying to be a supermodel. It was a survivor. "The Golden Spare," I said. Bill paused. He rolled the name around in his mouth. "The Golden Spare. Has a ring to it. A bit defiant." "That's the point," I said. "All right, Captain. I'll have the quote for the yard work on your desk by tomorrow. But I gotta ask, why the rush? Why New Year's?" I looked south, towards where I knew my family was probably planning their next black tie event, worrying about seating charts and gossip. "Because, Bill," I said, "I have a deadline. I need to be ready for a hostile takeover." Bill didn't ask what I meant. He just nodded. "Then we better get to work." The next 6 weeks were a blur of sawdust, welding sparks, and wire transfers. I rented a small motel room near the shipyard, but I spent most of my nights on the boat, sleeping on a mattress in the stripped-out captain's cabin. I was living a double life. During the day, I was monitoring the refit, sourcing materials, and arguing with vendors. At night, I was back on my laptop, finishing up the final reports for the forensic accounting case, and answering emails from my day job cover story. My family thought I was in Boston, depressed and hiding. Tristan texted me once. "Mom says you're not coming for Thanksgiving. Sulking much?" I replied, "Working on a project." "Happy Turkey Day." He didn't reply. They didn't care. That was the beauty of it. Their indifference was my shield. The refit was divided into 2 main categories: aesthetics and security. The aesthetics were simple. I stripped the 90s out of her. The green carpet was replaced with blonde teak flooring. The dark wood paneling was painted a crisp satin white. I installed LED strip lighting under the gunnels, giving the boat a soft, modern glow at night. The galley was upgraded with stainless steel appliances and quartz countertops. It went from funeral home to Manhattan loft on water. But the real money went into the systems they couldn't see. I hired a security firm from Providence that specialized in high-net-worth clients. "I want this boat to be a vault," I told the lead technician, a guy named Mike who looked like he was ex-military. "We talking pirates?" Mike asked. "We're talking persistent relatives," I said. "Same difference." We installed 4 high-definition cameras with night vision and audio recording, covering the aft deck, the flybridge, and the side decks. The footage uploaded in real time to a cloud server I controlled. We put motion sensors on the foredeck. But the piece de resistance was the companionway door, the sliding glass door that led from the back deck into the salon. It was the main entrance. "I want a mag lock," I said. "Magnetic locking system. 800 pounds of holding force. And I want it controlled by a biometric scanner." Mike whistled. "Fingerprint and facial recognition," I added. "And a keypad backup. But the keypad code changes every 24 hours. "This is overkill for a marina, Miss Vane," Mike said as he wired the panel. "It's not about the marina," I said, watching him solder the connections. "It's about the principle. I want to decide who comes into my home. For the first time in my life, I want a door that I can lock and no one else has a key to." Growing up, I never had a lock on my bedroom door. My mother said locks were secretive. Tristan used to barge in whenever he wanted to borrow my charger or just to annoy me. My privacy was always conditional. Not anymore. By the 3rd week of December, the Golden Spare was transforming. The hull had been polished and waxed until it gleamed like a mirror. The name was painted on the stern in gold leaf lettering, bold and unapologetic. I stood on the dock one evening, looking at her. She was beautiful. She wasn't just a boat. She was a 60-foot middle finger to everyone who had ever told me I wasn't enough. Bill walked up beside me, wiping his hands on a rag. "She's ready for the water, boss." "Monday," I said. "We splash her Monday." "You nervous?" "No," I said. "I'm ready." I pulled out my phone. I had created a new TikTok account called @The Golden Spare. It had 0 followers. I had posted nothing. I opened the camera app. I filmed the name on the stern, gleaming under the floodlights. Then I panned up to the polished chrome rails and the new teak deck. No music, just the sound of the wind and the shipyard. I didn't show my face. I just captioned it, "From rust to gold. The spare is rising." I hit post. The trap was set. Now, I just had to wait for the rats to smell the cheese. Enjoying the story so far? If you're rooting for Mallory to put her family in their place, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? Every comment helps this story reach more people who need a little revenge in their day. Thank you so much. The day we launched the Golden Spare back into the water was one of the coldest days of the year, but my heart was on fire. The massive travel lift groaned as it lowered 60 tons of aluminum and dreams into the dark water of Newport Harbor. When the hull touched the water, she settled perfectly. She floated on her lines, proud and buoyant. I popped a bottle of champagne. Not the expensive stuff my father drank to show off, but a decent Prosecco I bought at the local liquor store. I poured a plastic cup for Bill, one for Mike the security guy, and one for myself. To the Golden Spare, Bill toasted, raising his cup. May she always bring you home. To the B-list, I whispered to myself, clinking my cup against the railing. I moved aboard full-time that night. My apartment lease in Boston was up at the end of the month, and I had no intention of renewing it. This was my home now. Living on a boat in winter is intimate. The world outside is hostile, freezing wind, ice forming on the lines, but inside, with the new diesel heater humming, it was a cocoon. I spent my days organizing the galley, putting away my books, and setting up my mobile office in the salon. I had 3 monitors mounted on a custom bracket, overlooking the harbor. The crew became my family. Bill would stop by in the mornings with coffee and a donut. "Checking the bilges, Cap," he'd say, but I knew he was just checking on me. He told me stories about his time in the merchant marines, about storms he survived and ports he visited. It was a stark contrast to dinners at the Vane house, where conversation was a combat sport and affection was a bargaining chip. Here, respect was earned by competence. If I tied a cleat hitch correctly, Bill nodded. That nod meant more to me than any "I love you" my mother had ever feigned for a photo op. I started to feel different. My posture changed. I stood straighter. I stopped wearing the oversized sweaters that hid me and started wearing fitted wool coats and sturdy boots. I walked down the dock not like a trespasser, but like a landlord. One afternoon, sitting on the flybridge wrapped in a blanket, I looked at the contacts in my phone. Dad, Mom, Tristan. They were silent. They were busy planning their gala. The venue change to the country club had been a disaster, apparently. I heard through the grapevine, meaning I stalked my mother's Facebook, that the heating system at the club had indeed failed, just like they feared. They were scrambling for a new location. I took a sip of tea. "Panic, you vultures," I murmured. I checked my TikTok account. The video of the Stern name had garnered about 5,000 views. Respectable for a new account. The comments were mostly boat enthusiasts. Clean lines. "Is that a burger? Love the name. Story behind it." I replied to that one. "Long story. Stay tuned." I decided it was time to turn up the heat. I needed them to see it. I needed to dangle the bait. I filmed a second video. This time, I focused on the interior. I panned across the new salon, the cream leather sofas, the warm teak floor. Then, I walked to the galley and filmed my hand making an espresso on the new Italian machine. And on my wrist, clearly visible in the shot, was the watch. It was a vintage Rolex Submariner. My father had bought it in the 80s. He gave it to Tristan for his high school graduation. Tristan, being Tristan, had smashed the crystal during a frat party a year later and thrown it in a junk drawer, calling it old garbage. I had fished it out of the trash. I spent $2,000 of my own money I made tutoring math, to have it restored. I never told them. I just wore it. It was my secret trophy, a symbol that I could value what they discarded. I posted the video with the caption, "Morning coffee on the water. The best views are the ones you build yourself." I tagged it #Newport, #YachtLife, #restoration. And then, I waited. The algorithm is a funny thing. It's like a gossip. It knows exactly who needs to see what. My second video hit the For You page within 24 hours. It racked up 50,000 views, then 100,000. People loved the cozy luxury vibe. But I wasn't waiting for the strangers. I was waiting for the family. It happened on December 28th, 3 days before New Year's Eve. I was in the engine room, changing a fuel filter, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Then it buzzed again, and again. I wiped my hands and pulled it out. Instagram notification, Tristan Vane_official started following you. Instagram DM from Tristan. Yo. Instagram DM from Tristan. Is this you? Instagram DM from Tristan. That's Dad's watch. I recognized the scratch on the bezel. WTF, Mallory. I smiled. The fish had bitten. I didn't reply immediately. I let him stew. I finished changing the filter, primed the engine, and started it up to check for leaks. Only when I was satisfied with the pressure gauge did I go back upstairs. I opened the message. I typed, "Hello, Tristan. Yes, it's my watch now. You threw it away, remember?" He typed back instantly. The 3 dots danced aggressively. "Where are you? What is this boat? Mom is freaking out. Someone sent her the link. She says you're embarrassing the family by acting like some influencer." Embarrassing the family. The classic card. I replied, "I'm just living my life. You guys told me to stay home. So I'm at home. My new home." Tristan sent a screenshot of my video, circling the boat name. The Golden Spare? Seriously? You're so petty. How much did this junk cost? Did you find a sugar daddy or something? That stung. The assumption that I couldn't possibly afford this on my own. That I must have sold myself to get it. It was the ultimate insult to my competence. I took a deep breath. "Don't get angry," I told myself. "Get tactical." I replied, "It's fully paid for, Tristan. Ironclad Holdings LLC owns it. And it's not junk. It's a classic." I could feel his greed through the screen. A boat. A venue. A solution to their venue problem. "Where is it docked?" he asked. I didn't answer. "Mal, tell me where it is. Dad wants to know." I still didn't answer. Instead, I posted a new video to my story. A panoramic view of the sunset over Newport Harbor with the distinctive Newport Bridge in the background. I added a location sticker, Newport Shipyard Marina. I captioned it, "Hosting my own private gala. Invite only. Sorry, we're at capacity." I hit post. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was lighting a flare. I was practically drawing them a map. Come and get it, I thought. Come and try to take what isn't yours. The phone call came that evening. It wasn't Tristan. It wasn't Mom. It was the patriarch himself. My phone screen lit up with Dad. I stared at it. Richard Vane never called me. He had his secretary call me to schedule times to call him. A direct call meant he was either furious or desperate. I let it go to voicemail. I listened to the message a minute later. His voice was tight, controlled, the voice he used when he was trying to intimidate a subcontractor. "Mallory, this is your father. Tristan showed me your little videos. I don't know what game you're playing, pretending to be a tycoon on some rented barge, but you need to stop. We have a situation with the country club. The pipes burst. The gala is 2 days away, and we have no venue. I'm looking at your boat online. It looks adequate. Call me back immediately. We're going to pivot the party to Newport. You can finally make yourself useful." Adequate. He called my masterpiece, my sanctuary, adequate. And he assumed, without asking, that he could just take it. We're going to pivot. Not can we, but we are. I sat in the salon, the dark water lapping against the hull. The rage was cold now. It was ice. I called Silas. "They took the bait," I said. "Dad just left a voicemail. He wants to commandeer the boat for the gala." "Did you agree?" Silas asked. I didn't answer. "But they know where I am." "Okay," Silas said, his voice shifting into lawyer mode. "Listen to me closely, Mal. Do not give them verbal permission. Do not say maybe. Do not say we'll see. You say no. Explicitly. In writing." "I know," I said. "If they show up," Silas continued, "they are trespassing. But because they are family, the police will try to call it a civil dispute. We need to make it crystal clear that they have no right to board. I'm going to email the marina manager right now. I'm sending over the ownership docs for Ironclad Holdings. I'm putting you on the authorized personnel list, and I am explicitly listing Richard, Constance, and Tristan Vane on the denied access list." "Do it," I said. "And Silas? Make sure the police have a copy. Way ahead of you. Stay on the boat. Mal, don't let them charm you. Don't let them bully you." "They can't bully me," I said, looking at the biometric lock on the door. "I have a force field." I hung up. 10 minutes later, the text messages started. "Mom, Mallory, pick up the phone. This is an emergency. The senator is coming to the gala. We need a venue. We are driving down to Newport tomorrow to inspect the vessel. Make sure it's clean. Tristan, yo, Dad says we're using the boat. I'm bringing the DJ. Do you have a sound system, or do I need to rent one? Also, move your stuff out of the master cabin. Mom and Dad need it." The audacity was breathtaking. They were already moving in. They were already evicting me from my own bed. I typed a single message to the group chat. No. I sent it. Then I typed, "The boat is private property owned by Ironclad Holdings. It is not available for events. It is not available for the family. Do not come to Newport. You are not invited." I took a screenshot of the message. Evidence. The response was immediate chaos. My phone blew up. Calls, texts, threats. "Dad, you ungrateful brat. I paid for your life. You owe this family everything. If you don't open that gate, I will cut you off." I laughed out loud in the empty salon. Cut me off? From what? The $0 you give me? The emotional support that doesn't exist? I typed back, "I am self-made, Dad. You have nothing to cut off. Stay away from my boat." Then I put the phone on Do Not Disturb. I walked over to the security panel. I tapped the screen. System status, armed. Maglocks, engaged. Cameras, recording. I poured myself another glass of wine. "Come on then," I whispered. "Let's see how elite you really are." The next 24 hours were a masterclass in harassment. Since I wasn't answering my phone, they tried everything else. My mother tried to guilt-trip me. She sent long, weeping voicemails. "Mallory, how can you do this to us? I promised the senator a unique venue. You are ruining my reputation. You are ruining Christmas. After all I've done for you, I carried you for 9 months. Tristan tried to threaten me. Dad's lawyers are going to sue you. They're going to seize the boat. You better unlock the gate before we get there, or I'm going to break it down." My father tried to bypass me. I was in the galley making oatmeal on the morning of December 31st when I got an email from the marina office. Subject: Guest Authorization Request Body. Ms. Vane, we received a docking request form from a Richard Vane. He claims to be the primary benefactor of the vessel and states he has lost his key fob. He is requesting a new set of keys be left at the front desk for his arrival at 6 p.m. tonight. Please confirm. I stared at the screen. He had lied to the marina. He was trying to social engineer his way onto my boat. I called the marina office immediately. "This is Mallory Vane," I said, my voice steady. "Do not issue keys. Repeat, do not issue keys. Richard Vane is not a benefactor. He has no ownership. If he shows up, he is to be treated as a trespasser." The marina manager, a nice woman named Sarah, sounded nervous. "Okay, Ms. Vane." He sounded very authoritative. He sent a letter on company letterhead. "It's a bluff, Sarah," I said. "My lawyer, Silas, sent you the LLC documents yesterday. Check them. I am the sole signatory." "Yes, I see that here." "Okay, we will deny the request." "But," he said, "he's bringing a party." "Caterers. Turn them away," I said. "If they try to force entry, call the police." "Actually, don't worry. I'll call them." I hung up and called Silas. "They tried to fake a key request," I told him. "Classic Richard," Silas sighed. "Okay, I'm filing a formal notice with the Newport Police Department right now, requesting a patrol car for the marina parking lot this evening. I'm framing it as a potential domestic disturbance and trespassing issue." "Thanks, Silas." "Mal," his voice softened. "Are you sure you want to be there? You can leave. Go to a hotel. Let the cops handle it." "No," I said, looking out at the gray water. "I need to see this. I need them to see me. If I run, they win. I have to stand my ground. I have to be the captain." "Okay," Silas said. "But keep the door locked. Do not go out on the dock." "I won't. I'll be watching from the bridge." The sun began to set on New Year's Eve. The sky turned a bruised purple, then black. The marina lights flickered on. Other boats were hosting parties. I could hear faint music and laughter drifting across the water. On the Golden Spare, it was silent. I had dressed up. I was wearing a silk emerald green gown, the kind of dress my mother would say I didn't have the body for. I did my hair. I put on the Rolex. I sat in the dark salon, illuminated only by the glow of the security monitors. At 7:15 p.m., the headlights swept across the parking lot. One black SUV, then another, then a catering van. They were here. I watched the security feed like a hawk. The convoy stopped at the marina gate. I saw my father get out. He was wearing a tuxedo. He looked furious. He was arguing with the security guard at the booth. I zoomed in on the camera. He was waving a piece of paper. The fake letter. The guard was shaking his head. "Good man." Then, my father did something that made my blood boil. He pointed at the catering van and then pointed at the gate, shoving a wad of cash into the guard's hand. The guard hesitated. He looked at the cash. He looked at the angry man in the tuxedo. He pressed the button. The gate arm lifted. Unbelievable, I whispered. Money really does talk. The convoy rolled through the parking lot and stopped right at the head of the dock leading to my slip. The doors opened. It was a clown car of entitlement. My mother stepped out, wrapped in a white fur coat, clutching a bottle of champagne. Tristan jumped out, wearing a velvet blazer that cost more than my car. His wife, Kylie, waddled out behind him. She was 8 months pregnant and looked miserable. And then, a stranger. A guy in a dark work jacket carrying a heavy tool bag. A locksmith. They weren't just coming to party. They were coming to break in. I picked up my phone. I didn't call the police yet. I wanted them to get closer. I wanted it all on tape. I stepped out onto the aft deck, but I stayed behind the glass door. The maglocks were engaged. The glass was impact-resistant. They marched down the dock. My father was leading the charge, looking like a general invading a small country. They reached the swim platform. They saw me standing there behind the glass. My father stopped. He smiled. It was a terrifying, fake smile. "Mallory," he shouted, his voice carrying over the water. "Open up. The guests will be here in 20 minutes. We need to set up the champagne tower." I didn't move. I just stared at him. "Mallory," my mother chimed in, stepping onto the swim platform. Her heels clicked on the teak. "Don't be childish. It's freezing out here. Kylie is pregnant. For God's sake. Let us in." I tapped the glass. I pointed to the biometric scanner. "Open it," Tristan yelled. He ran up the steps to the aft deck. He grabbed the handle of the sliding door and yanked. It didn't budge. 800 pounds of magnetic force held it shut. "It's locked," Tristan screamed. "She locked us out. Mallory, open this goddamn door right now." My father's veneer of civility cracked. His face went red. "This is my boat. I paid for your education. I paid for your food. Everything you have is mine." I pressed the intercom button. My voice boomed out of the external speaker, calm and amplified. "This vessel is the property of Ironclad Holdings. You are trespassing. Leave now, or I will call the authorities." "Authorities?" My father laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "I am the authority. Jimmy, get up here." The locksmith scurried up the steps. He looked nervous. He looked at the high-tech panel. "Crack it," my father ordered. "Drill it if you have to." "Dad, this is a bad idea," Kylie whispered, hugging her coat tight. She said leave. "Shut up, Kylie," Tristan snapped. "Drill it, Jimmy." Jimmy the locksmith pulled out a drill. He approached my door. That was the line. I picked up my phone. I hit the speed dial for Officer Reed, the contact Silas had given me. "This is Mallory Vane on the Golden Spare," I said into the phone, watching Jimmy position the drill bit against my lock. "I have intruders attempting to force entry with tools. I am in fear for my safety." "We are 30 seconds out, Ms. Vane," Reed's voice crackled. "Sit tight." Jimmy the locksmith hesitated. "Look, Mr. Vane, this is a biometric maglock. If I drill this, the alarm is going to trigger. It's wired into the ship's main system." "I don't care," my father roared. "I'll buy a new lock. Just get us inside before the senator arrives." "Do it," Tristan shouted, shoving Jimmy forward. Jimmy revved the drill. At that exact moment, blue and red lights flooded the dock. A siren chirped, loud, sharp, and authoritative. "Step away from the door." A voice amplified by a megaphone cut through the night air. Jimmy dropped the drill like it was hot. He threw his hands up immediately. "I'm just a contractor." "I didn't know." My father spun around. 2 police officers were walking down the dock. Officer Reed was in the lead, looking unamused. "Officer." My father switched instantly into his charm mode. He walked down the steps to meet them on the floating dock. "Thank God you're here. My daughter is having a mental health episode. She's locked herself inside our family vessel and refuses to let us in for our scheduled event." Officer Reed didn't smile. He stopped 3 feet from my father. "Sir, are you Richard Vane?" "Yes, I am. And this is a misunderstanding. If you could just ask her to open the door." "Mr. Vane, we have a no trespass order on file for this address filed by Ironclad Holdings. Are you a representative of Ironclad Holdings?" My father blinked. "Iron what?" "No, I am her father. That boat was bought with my money. According to the documentation we have, the vessel is solely owned by the LLC, and the sole signatory is Mallory Vane. She has requested you be removed from the premises." My mother gasped. "Removed? We have guests coming. We have caterers." Then you better call them and tell them the party is canceled, ma'am, Officer Reed said. He looked up at me, standing behind the glass. He nodded. I nodded back. This is ridiculous. Tristan shouted from the aft deck. It's my sister. She's stealing our property. Sir, get off the boat, Reed ordered, his hand resting near his belt. Now, make me. Tristan, fueled by adrenaline and stupidity, puffed out his chest. Tristan, stop. Kylie screamed. Tristan didn't stop. He grabbed a heavy deck chair, one of my new teak chairs, and swung it at the glass door. Crash. The safety glass didn't shatter, but it spiderwebbed. A massive white crack appeared right in front of my face. The alarm went off. A deafening, high-pitched siren that pulsed through the harbor. That's it, Officer Reed shouted. He rushed up the steps. On the ground. Now, Tristan tried to back up, but he tripped over the locksmith's bag. Reed was on him in a second. He pinned Tristan to the beautiful new teak deck. Get off him, my mother shrieked, swinging her Chanel bag at the cop. The second officer caught her arm. Ma'am, step back or you will be detained for obstruction. My father stood on the dock, watching his empire crumble. He looked at Tristan being handcuffed. He looked at his wife being restrained. Then he looked at me. I unlocked the door. The siren was still blaring. I stepped out onto the deck. The cold wind hit my face. Mallory, my father pleaded, his voice cracking. Tell them it's a mistake. The senator is pulling into the parking lot right now. Please. I looked at the chaos. The flashing lights. The broken glass. The family that had treated me like a spare part for 30 years. I looked at my father. I can't, Dad, I said, my voice calm under the siren. I'm not elite enough to talk to the police for you. Officer Reed hauled Tristan to his feet. Let's go. You're being charged with attempted burglary and destruction of property. They dragged him down the dock. My mother followed, sobbing about her reputation. My father stood there for one last second, staring at me with pure hatred. Then he turned and ran after the cops to try and spin the story. Only Kylie remained. She looked at me. She looked at the handcuffs on her husband. I'm sorry, Mal, she whispered. Get a lawyer, Kylie, I said gently. A divorce lawyer. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and walked away into the dark. The silence after the siren cut off was deafening. The marina was awake now. People from other boats were standing on their decks, phones out, recording the show. I was trending before the police car even left the parking lot. I walked back inside the salon. The glass door was ruined, a spiderweb of cracks obscuring the view. I ran my finger along the fracture. It would cost $5,000 to replace. It was worth every penny. I sat down on the sofa. My adrenaline was crashing. My hands started to shake. I poured the rest of the champagne into a mug. My hands were shaking too much for a flute, and drank it in one gulp. My phone buzzed. It was Silas. I saw the live stream, he said. Someone on the next dock broadcasted the whole thing. Tristan is in custody. Your dad is trying to bail him out, but since it's a holiday eve, the judge won't see him until the 2nd. Tristan is spending New Year's in a cell. Happy New Year, I whispered. Are you okay, Mal? I don't know, I admitted. I thought I would feel happy. I just feel tired. That's normal, Silas said. You just cut off a limb. It hurts, even if it was gangrenous. Go to sleep. I'll handle the restraining orders in the morning. I didn't sleep in the master cabin. I slept on the sofa, watching the door, guarding my fortress. The fallout was nuclear. The video of Tristan being cuffed while my mother swung her purse at a cop went viral locally. The Vane family meltdown was the headline on the local gossip blog. The senator, obviously, never made it to the party. He saw the police lights and had his driver turn around. The Legacy Gala never happened. 2 days later, on January 2nd, I met Silas at the courthouse. My father was there. He looked 10 years older. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing a wrinkled polo shirt. He tried to approach me in the hallway. Mallory, he started. Silas stepped in between us like a human wall. Mr. Vane, any communication goes through me. If you speak to my client, I will have your bail revoked. My father glared at Silas, then looked at me over his shoulder. You destroyed this family. I looked him in the eye. No, Richard. You built a house of cards. I just refuse to be the bottom card anymore. We walked into the courtroom. The judge was not amused by Tristan's antics. He issued a permanent restraining order. Tristan was released on probation, but had to pay for the door and attend anger management classes. But the real damage was financial. The investors who were supposed to be impressed by the Gala pulled out. They didn't want to be associated with a family that got arrested for brawling on a dock. The vain real estate firm began to crumble. Kylie did listen to me. She filed for divorce a week later. She moved back in with her parents. I sent her a baby shower gift, a savings bond for the kid. She kept it. 3 weeks later, the glass door was fixed. The scratches on the teak were sanded out. The golden spare was pristine again. I was in the wheelhouse, checking the charts. The engines were idling, a low, comforting rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. Barnacle Bill was on the foredeck, coiling a line. "Ready to cast off, Cap?" he called out over the radio. "Ready," I said. I pushed the throttles forward. The boat surged. We pulled away from the dock, away from Newport, away from the scene of the crime. I wasn't going back to Boston. I was heading south. Florida, maybe the Bahamas. My business was digital. I could work from anywhere with Starlink. I steered the boat past the breakwater. The open ocean stretched out in front of me, gray and endless and free. I thought about Tristan, probably sitting in his room in my parents' house, blaming me for his failure. I thought about my mother, crying over her lost social standing. I thought about my father, looking at his ledger and realizing he was in the red. I looked at the Rolex on my wrist. It ticked steadily. I wasn't the spare anymore. I wasn't the B-list. I was the captain. I pushed the throttles down. The bow rose. The golden spare cut through the waves, leaving a white wake behind us, washing away the past. Looking back at the empty dock as I sailed away, I wondered, was I too harsh for letting my brother get arrested on New Year's Eve, or was that the only language they finally understood? Thank you for sailing with me on this journey of revenge. If you think the Vane family got what they deserved, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments. What would you have done if your family tried to hijack your success?